Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to welcome you all at the first of the evenings dedicated to the special guest of the Central European Forum Olomouc Kassak Museum in Budapest. I'm personally very glad that we have the opportunity to meet at least in the all-embracing virtual space. However, I believe that during the autumn months, we will be able to organize at least one discussion platform in Olomouc as well. This program is part of the SEFO 2021 Triennial Universum. For more information about the events, follow us on our page TRIENALE SEFO.cz and other platforms as well. Let me now introduce the institution itself, Kassak Museum, as well as our two speakers who kindly accepted the invitation. The Kassak Museum was established in 1976. It preserves intellectual as well as material legacy of Lajos Kassak, but is also interested in contemporary avant-garde approaches and developments. Themes reflected include the establishment of Central European avant-garde itself, their existence between politics and art, the use of new art forms, and also their overlaps with everyday life. The aim is not to update their strategies, but to generalize them and, as such, to place them in a broader framework. In that regard, it is highly innovative. As part of the triennial, the Kassak Museum will present a series of online lectures and programs linked to a new permanent exhibition. It will also include discussion with foreign experts. Now the guests itself. Edith Shashvari is an art historian and museum curator. She studied history and art history in Pécs and Budapest and museum curating in Vienna. Between 2010-2020, she was director of the Kassak Museum in Budapest. Her main research areas include modernism, the historical avant-garde, the neo-avant-garde, and cultural policy in the 60s and 70s. She has edited and contributed to numerous publications and catalogs. She is one of the authors of the book called Illegal Avant-Garde, the Balaton-Boglár Chapel Studio of György Kalantai between 1970 and 73, published in 2003. She has curated many exhibitions presenting both Hungarian and international artists. In 2011, she was the co-curator of the exhibition Kassak, the ambassador of the avant-garde in the Berlinische Gallery. In 2015, she was invited to the MoMA's CMAP seminar in New York. Between 2014 and 16, she initiated and ran a research program in the Kassak Museum entitled Hungarian Art in the 60s and 70s, as a result of which the volume Double Speak and Beyond was published by Thames and Hudson in 2018. Merche Pálszeredi holds an MA in Art History from Eötvös Loránd University, where he's currently studying for his PhD. He's the head of a department in the Kassak Museum, where he works since 2015. He is a member of a research group, Lajos Kassak Avant-Garde Journals from a Disciplinary Perspective, 1915-1928, since 2016. His research focuses on Hungarian avant-garde art and history of Lajos Kassak magazine Ma, which means today, in Vienna between 1920 and 1925, with special emphasis on its international networks. He has curated exhibition in Kassak Museum, in the Virág Judit Gallery in Budapest, and the János Pannonius Museum in Pécs. He has also worked on exhibition in the Hungarian National Gallery and the Berlinische Gallery, and his work has been published in several academic journals, exhibition catalogs, and multi-author volumes. After the lecture, the space will be given to questions from the audience as well. It's possible to use the chat for these purposes, which is active on both our platforms we are currently using for the stream, which means Facebook and YouTube. So this is all from me for now. I will co-moderate the discussion itself at the end of the lecture. We have something around 50 minutes ahead of us, so let's enjoy it. Dear Edith, Merche, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. And thank you very much for your kind introduction. I would like to thank you and all your colleagues for your generous invitation and the opportunity to present our museum's current research exhibitions and current programs at your triennial as a special guest. First of all, I would like to give a brief overview of what we are planning to do during the coming weeks and months. Of course, these special times call for special measures, and so we had to rethink the whole set that we're going to present to you now through an online space and an online version of our presentations, which also has its merits, because this way we can also make new technical adjustments and create a new virtual space for conversation. We're going to have altogether 5 presentations, 5 occasions to visit the Kassak Museum virtually through the guided tours and talks of our colleagues. The first presentation now is going to be about the history, the general idea behind, and the current programs of our museum. This is going to be held by Edith and me. On the 7th of October, we're going to have a virtual guided tour through a 3-dimensional virtual exhibition in our permanent collection, which is focused on Lajos Kassak and especially on his internationally renowned avant-garde journals. This virtual exhibition is just finished. We're just making the final touches right now, and we're really happy that we have the opportunity to present this virtual version of the permanent collection so soon, just after it was finished. The third presentation is going to be held by our colleagues who work in the museum education department, and we really plan to have some kind of an interactive and more playful setting during this presentation. We have been working with them since 2 years now, and of course, because of the pandemic and the closure of the museums in 2020, we had to rethink the whole idea of museum education and move most of our programs into the virtual space. And this is also an opportunity for them to present their new inventions, which connect the students and the general audience interested in Hungarian avant-garde with the museum and the museum's collection through the virtual space. The fourth presentation is going to be about our 2 main research and exhibition series, one of which is focused on life reform movements in the interwar period in Hungary, and the other one focused on Kassak's and other avant-garde editors' journals during the 1920s and 1930s. Our colleagues are going to give an overview of both the general directions of their research and also give some general ideas about the exhibitions that we had during the past years and the ones which are also planned for the coming years. And the last presentation, or the last event of this series, is going to be hopefully held, as Barbara have already said, in person in Olomouc, and it's going to be a roundtable discussion about the topics that were raised during the past 4 presentations, and also the topics which are generally linked to current thinking about Central European or Eastern and Central European avant-gardes. We have to, of course, count with the possibility that this one is also going to be held online. But right now we are still hopeful that we will be able to join you personally in Olomouc for an evening discussion late November this year. We really hope that you're going to enjoy our presentations. And once again, we are very, very much thankful for the invitation. And we really hope to see you as soon as possible in Budapest in the Kassak Museum at one of our new temporary exhibitions or one of our programs. And now I would like to hand the microphone over to Edith, who's going to start the presentation about the history, the concept, and the future plans of the museum.
Welcome everyone to this very special event. And firstly, I would like to say that we are grateful to Barbara and the Olomouc Museum for the invitation. It's a great pleasure and honor for all of us to have the opportunity of showing in this framework the activity of the Kassak Museum. In my short presentation, I would like to show you how we have been trying to reposition the Kassak Museum since I took over as a director more than 10 years ago in October 2010. I don't want to talk so much about the specific details, but rather about the principles that we kept in view when we draw up a new strategy of the museum. The next slide, please, Mersha. If I were to try to summarize what the Kassak Museum is, I could say it is a contemporary institution of the Hungarian avant-garde. Actually, the Kassak Museum is the only site in Hungary which devotes its research to the historical avant-garde, applying an approach that is both contemporary and historical, and it works with professionals of different fields who take a contemporary view of historical artworks and documentation, and also with contemporary artists. Furthermore, we actively collaborate with the audience, especially with those groups of society who are stakeholders in our research topics. What does the term contemporary mean in this case, you might ask, since we are dealing with a fundamentally historical material? The next slide, please. Something that is very important to our work is the contemporary perspective. This means looking at historical material through the lens of current phenomena and questions and comparing it with the society of today. Our exhibitions programs based on historical research also involve contemporary artists who can contribute their peculiar approaches to the interpretation, just as the work of contemporary artists exhibited in the museum reflecting on Kassak's oeuvre and issues the avant-garde. On the other hand, the museum is also trying to face the challenges of today's world by raising issues that can activate from different perspectives this historical material. Of definitive consequence for the museum is its position on the increasingly globalized contemporary cultural market. The museum's own history also partially defines its present identity, position, and opportunities, and is a source of cultural capital for activities involving systematic self-interpretation. We also address the issues that arise concerning the museum's presentation of the avant-garde as a phenomenon which is highly critical of institutions. As a result, we must deal with the contradictions and tensions that arise when researching and presenting the avant-garde in a museum space. The next one, please. The Kassak Museum is a small and culturally specific museum. It is located on the first floor of an old Baroque building, the Zichy Castle, in one of the outer districts of Budapest in Óbuda. Organizationally, the institution is a small unit of the most prestigious museum of Hungarian literature, the Petőfi Literary Museum, located in the city center. The history of Kassak Museum goes back to the state socialist period. It was founded in 1976, 10 years after Kassak's death. He died in 1967, as a memorial museum of the kind that is dedicated to exhibiting the works of a single artist. It was one of several similar memorial museums set up in Hungary under a government policy aimed at presenting canonized figures. What does a memorial museum actually mean? The cultural policy of the time identified certain artists as representing values they approved of and promoted them by means of dedicating museums. By the way, several living artists were given a memorial museum in these decades, such as the Hungarian-born Viktor Vasarely, Amerigo Tóth, or the sculptor most favored by the state, Imre Varga. But this was not such a simple matter in Kassak's case. And the idea establishing a museum for him provoked stormy discussions within the Communist Party. Kassak, who was born in 1886, was a highly versatile figure. The next slide, please. Painter, writer, designer, editor of several magazines, movement organizer. In the 1910s and 1920s, Kassak was one of the central figures of the Hungarian avant-garde movement. He defined much of its program, and in the rest of the 20th century, or even today, he went on to serve as a model for radical or critical thinkers. All this has earned him a significant place, not just in the art history, but also on many other fields in a really broader sense. His figure, personality, and work are still widely popular even today. In Hungary, he was a role model, for example, for the contemporary activist movement on the 2000s. And there are a lot of subcultural phenomena, circles with different backgrounds in Hungary that base their activities on the spirit of Kassak. For the Kádár era authorities, the era was named after János Kádár, the General Secretary of the Communist Party. So for them, Kassak posed a constant problem both during his life and after he died in 1967. 2 years before his death, he had been granted the highest cultural honor for his literary activity, but his central artistic focus was his abstract painting, and that was regarded as problematic. This also shows that the cultural regime of the time firmly separated Kassak's literary and artistic work, of which only the literary part was acceptable to them. So actually, they highlighted a part of this multifaceted oeuvre, and the literary activity was all they were willing to accept. But at the same time, his work attracted really intense interest, and the new avant-garde generation of the 1960s and 70s had him in particularly high regard. These were young people who looked on him as a father figure. But in the official artistic discourse controlled by the cultural regime, his art, his abstract painting was completely excluded. it was, so his last exhibition was in a peripheral space that was only open for a few days in 1967, in the year when he died. But there was really a large number of people interested in Kassak's work. This even can be regarded as a kind of demonstration in the former cultural context of the time. So all in all, the next slide, please. Yes, and the next one. So all in all, this formed the background to the museum's first 13 years operation during the directorship of my predecessor, Dr. Ferenc Csapler. Establishing Kassak's place as a visual artist was therefore the constant objective of him during this long period. He steadfastly promoted Kassak's work and played a key role in presenting his memory. On the other hand, he completely monopolized the Kassak material and didn't really allow others to have access to it. And this shows that he himself wanted to form the new image of Kassak and appropriate the Kassak narrative. And for us today, this phenomenon can be a very interesting research topic. Thanks to his effort, Kassak was eventually included into the canon as a visual artist and not just a writer. His activities were mainly limited to correcting the one-sided image of Kassak, which had been set up during the Kádár era. Because the canonization of Kassak had previously taken place along literary lines, which precisely shows that why the Memorial Museum itself was founded in the context of a most prestigious literary museum in the 1970s. Next slide, please. By the time I took over Ferenc Csapler's position a few years after his death, the figure of Kassak stood before us as a monument of the Hungarian avant-garde. There were a lot of questions we had to face when we started. First of all, what we could do with this monument that Kassak had become. And what could we do with a museum confined to preserving the legacy of one man? How could we present Kassak as a living figure? What new angles could we take on his work? And how can we represent his multifaceted activity in its complexity? Another question that was always in my mind, how such a small museum in a small country like Hungary can extend its horizon beyond the national border and possibly offer some answers to the global challenges facing museums and professionals. We realized the need to map out a new way forward. If the conceptualization of Kassak was to remain poorly on the level of respect and appreciation, his legacy would soon be petrified and lose its power. Instead, while presenting the appreciation and understanding of Kassak's greatness, the museum staff sought new means of critical analysis. The key word in the museum's new self-image was openness. Openness in every sense, intellectually, to the international scene, to a wider public. In 2011, a new team took over the operation of the museum. It was a new beginning, a clean sheet. We were three of us. On the slide, you can see my colleagues we started with, Judith Csatlós and Katalin Szőke, who is sitting in a cup and coat because sometimes in winter there was no heating in the museum. It was a really very successful start. We built up the permanent exhibition, which opened in 2011 In the same year, we organized the big exhibition, Kassak exhibition in the Berlinische Gallery, together with Collegium Hungaricum in Berlin, and together with designer Imre Lepsényi, who we won two major international awards for the museum's image, which further strengthened our reputation. Our starting point in 2011 was that Kassak is an internationally recognized representative of avant-garde in Hungary. This was the basis for making the museum a focus point for all kinds of modernism research in Hungary. But it was also clear to us that for a Kassak-centered research to be comprehensive, we must examine modernism and avant-garde in the wider sense, viewed from today's perspective, because we now look on modernism as a close period, part of 20th century cultural history. As such, we must redefine it as a contemporary problem, which requires a change of attitude. This prompted us to set up a Kassak-related research program and exhibitions to cover questions of historical modernism, not only in a Hungarian context, but also internationally. This could be the key to the museum's positioning within Hungary and then abroad, producing results that could be channeled into those of other centers of modernism research. The development of the museum's research, and the next slide, please. The museum's research project was taken to a higher level. Next one, please. No. Yes. The development of the museum's research project was taken to a higher level when Gábor Dobó and Merse Szeredi joined us, and later historian Eszter Balázs in 2014. They developed the museum's scientific research program that examine our issues from an international perspective and through interdisciplinary research. Merse will talk more about all this. One of the most important questions to address in this regard was what is the proper framework for discussing Central European avant-garde, national, regional, or global? This was one of the mainsprings of the opening to take the Kassak interpretation out of the national framework, because as a basis for research into Kassak and the avant-garde in general, the national context and national interpretation appeared unsuitable. A crucial question was how to link museum materials and collection to a policy of openness, creating wider links with the public and professionals. We focused on themes that were themselves about community building, and which rather show the context of Kassak's oeuvre, the social, sociological, and historical context in which his oeuvre was created. These two major themes were avant-garde genres and the 20th century social movements. This latter exhibition series, created and professionally developed by Judith Csatlós, will be presented in a separate lecture in this series. So the basic idea was to reconstruct Kassak's network in a series of exhibitions over several years. These mainly feature his magazines. The avant-garde magazines were a channel of vigorous communication among artist in the international scene at that time. And it is also important to say that Kassak never worked alone. In fact, his most significant activity was what he did with other people, building connections and running groups like editorial boards and artist circles. And not least, we try to find and involve parallels of these kind of circles today. From the very beginning, the museum has been cooperating with those circles and groups of the civil society that are in some way socially active and as such linked to the traditions of Kassak's heritage. One of Judith Chatlow's important projects was to work on the housing movement of the 20th century together with people who are living with homelessness today. Next slide, please. The new museum staff also examined the question of its relations with the public. For museum visitors, the museum had far been a small local venue situated in a slightly peripheral district of Budapest. Actually, the museum was a kind of secret place during the Kádár era, so an important aim was to break out of this confinement and open up to a broader public. It is always very difficult for a small museum to attract a big audience, but thanks to our colleagues, Renata Sikra, Head of Communication, Zsófi Márton, Marta Mi, and our artist partners, Péter Forgács and Orsi Barna, the museum is always able to offer innovative approaches to the challenges of reaching the public. But this activity of the museum will be shown in a separate presentation. The Kassak Museum wants to arouse the interest of society as a whole. As such, it identifies its mission as being a museum that is informative and open to education and the participation of visitors with a clear and attractive message to the public. The essence of this message is that the Kassak Museum is the contemporary museum of the Hungarian avant-garde, a place which, just like Kassak himself, sees the importance of addressing contemporary artistic and social issues. I thank you for your attention, and I give over to Mirce.
Thank you very much. For the second part of the presentation today, I would like to just very briefly talk about our current work with Kassak's avant-garde journals as a part of a complex research and exhibition and publication project, which is of high importance for me as well, because I joined the team of the museum, as Edith have already said, especially through the research into avant-garde magazines. Here we have a photo of an exhibition which was called Kassakism. This was set up in our main building in the Literary Museum in the city center as a part of a three-part exhibition series in 2017 and 2018, which was held on the occasion of the 130th centenary of Kassak's birth. And this was supposed to be a memorial exhibition series in three connected museums, which were all part of the Petőfi Literary Museum. But actually, this three-part exhibition was a great opportunity for us already 2-3 years into our research to set up an overview of the already mentioned internationality of or international embeddedness of Kassak's magazines in the 1920s, which has already been researched, and the links or the connections have been established, but it has never been shown to the broader public in Hungary, which is quite an important and also very interesting fact if we look at big museums in Europe and in the world dealing with the historical avant-garde or the neo-avant-gardes. We can always see the stress on the international networkedness of avant-gardes from the 1900s up until the 2000s. But still, if we look at individual cases, and I think that Edith has already clearly demonstrated this in the case of Kassak and Kassak's reception during the 1970s and 1980s and even the 1990s. So if we look at individual cases and we look very closely, you can see that that actually those connections and those networks should well be researched and interpreted individually. And if you look into the details of these networks, and if you look into the details of the international intentions of the avant-garde in the 1920s, then you can also find out that all these ideas that we have about the avant-garde in general could very well be much more detailed, and in several cases a new narrative can be written just through the help of the analysis of these international connections. And we think that this close look and close reading of the avant-garde networks and the avant-garde magazines themselves are of much importance for us, especially in Central Europe or East Central Europe, because if we look closely to these networks and to these connections, and if we try to find the common ground and the common interest in the avant-garde movements of the 1920s, 1930s that emerged in Central Europe and East Central Europe, then we can find that these networks actually were much more stronger and much more bilateral than we thought from a point of view which generalizes these ideas and generalizes the whole system of avant-garde networks. So for us, the research into avant-garde magazines and especially Kassak's magazines during the 1920s is in a way an opportunity to reconnect with Central European and East Central European colleagues, and this is in a way our task during this research project, which has been going on since 2015, to trying to set up a new way and a new space for thinking about Central European avant-gardes. What we did besides research and exhibitions was a series of international conferences which were held in the Kassak Museum in 2015 and 2016. Now we have had a small break between conferences because we have been working on the proceedings. of the last conference, which was in 2016, commemorating the centenary of Dada. And the conference was focused on Central European Dada phenomena. But next year, we're also going to have our next international conference on the topics of center and periphery in magazines, and especially avant-garde magazines, together with the Museum of Fine Arts in Budapest. Along with conference and research, we have also been trying to develop our ideas already during the research project and formulate these new narratives through different publications, which we are always trying to publish in English as well, besides Hungarian. Edith has already mentioned the publication on the far right on this slide, Doublespeak and Beyond Art in Hungary from 1956 to 1980, which was published in 2018 by Thames and Hudson. This has been the result of a research project going on for more than 2 years. And this is actually a volume which has been focusing on post-war avant-garde or neo-avant-garde topics, but it also includes the positions of socialist modernist art, and this has been a very important part of the research projects that has been going on in the Kassak Museum. The 2 volumes on the left are publications dealing with avant-garde journals from the 1910s and 1920s. We have already published the proceedings of our first conference from 2015, and also the volume called Art in Action, which is also available already online. And this is the first overview of our current research into Kassak's avant-garde journals. We have also been working with exhibitions, as I have already mentioned, in which we are trying to work together with contemporary artist Klára Rudas on a way to present these avant-garde journals not as artworks or art objects, but rather as documents which could tell us a narrative, which could be interpreted not only in a Hungarian context, because most of these magazines were published in Hungarian, but also in an international context. And we're trying to set up these links between the Hungarian and the international contexts. And in this regard, it's very important for us to create contemporary networks between Central European museums and curators and researchers. And we were very happy to partake in 2 important traveling exhibitions on Central European avant-gardes in 2018. One of these exhibitions was held in the Vienna Belvedere and the Beaux-Arts in Brussels. It was curated by Alexander Klee, and the title was Beyond Klimt, and the exhibition itself was focused on interwar Central European avant-gardes. So was the project and exhibition series Years of Disarray, which started at the Museum of Art in Olomouc. Head of curatorial team was Karel Schrupp, and this whole series went on to Poland, Slovakia, and finally to Hungary in 2020. And at both exhibitions, magazines had an important role and an important place. We were very happy that Kassak and the whole research project, which was initiated by the Kassak Museum, was also involved in the creation of this exhibition series. To close up, to sum up this first presentation about the Kassak Museum, as the new director of the museum since late 2020, I would like to set up just a few objectives and a few tasks which are ahead of us and which we are trying to go forth with during the coming years. First of all, I would like to stress that we're continuing with our research projects in new ways as well, which were not included in our research before. One of the most important part of our endeavor is digitization. We're working on a digital edition of Kassak's journals, which were published in Budapest, in Vienna, during the 1910s and 1920s. And we are also just starting our work with the correspondence of Lajos Kassak, which is a big part of our collection in the Kassak Museum. We have more than 2,000 pieces of correspondence from Kassak's estate, and this has never been processed yet, just used for research. But now we are starting our research on this collection, and we're trying to create a digital critical edition of Kassak's correspondence, which is a very important collection of avant-garde editorial correspondence, which includes letters to and by, for example, Tristan Tzara, Theo van Doesburg, Elie Sitzky, and so on and so forth. We're also trying to further develop our regional cooperations, and we're trying to, as I have already said, set up new international conferences. And we're also very happy that we have the opportunity to present our projects here, because this virtual space created by the Olomouc Museum is also a great space to set up new regional networks and cooperations. In our exhibition series, which is going to be discussed further in the fourth presentation of this series, we're trying to set up new focus points as well. One of these is interdisciplinary research. We're trying to open up to new media. For example, we're going to have an exhibition about avant-garde music during 2022, so next year, next summer. We're also trying to focus, besides Kassak, on less known figures of Hungarian avant-garde. For example, our next exhibition, which is going to be opened mid-November, is focused on two poets, one of whom was the sister of Kassak and her husband, who was also a co-editor of one of Kassak's journals. But these guys have been already nearly completely forgotten, and they are out of the Hungarian canon, literary canon. So we are trying to focus on those artists, those figures whose archives are still existing. We're trying to acquire these archives, these estates, and we're trying to present their work in a critical format in exhibitions, temporary exhibitions in the museum. We're also trying to work together with contemporary artists, not only as designers for our exhibitions, but also as presenters, as exhibitors of the museum. We're trying now to set up a framework for presenting contemporary art in the museum on a regular basis every year. And our general objectives, as Edith have already said, has been to open up the museum to new audiences, to new groups, to international, visitors, to general audiences, students, and also researchers, museum professionals. Right now, we think that one of the great tasks and projects ahead of us is to further develop the digital experience. So open up the museum to digital visitors by digitizing our collection, by creating virtual exhibitions, by creating online guided tours, and so on and so forth. And hopefully, as you have seen in the photo shown by Edith, we will be able to reconstruct the building of the museum, which is a Baroque castle, which has been reconstructed during the early 80s last. So it has already been a long time since the last renovation of the building. And even though this space is quite challenging for us, and it's also in a way funny to try to set up an avant-garde museum, a modernist museum in a Baroque space, in a Baroque castle. But I think that this is a very unique opportunity, and we really try to make it work in a way that creates also a dialogue between the architectural space and the content of the museum. I would like to thank you all for your attention, and I would like to give the microphone back to Barbara and open up the discussion with the questions.
Thank you, Versha. Thank you, Edith. I think it was absolutely lovely. Again, I was thinking about your institution and your museum, because I also liked in your presentation how you connect the personal level. I mean, the people who work in the museum itself, the projects, exhibitions, research, and so on. And have you been able to put it together whole in a historical context of avant-garde? Mershi, I think you can put your camera on. We are just now going through the discussion, so it's not need to stay off it. Do you like your work? Do you like the Kassak Museum? Do you project a good future for this kind of institution? Because I think we all find ourselves in quite unstable position. Institutions are shaving. We are thinking about the future for ourselves, for European culture, I guess. So do you see the bright future for your institution?
Edith? Maybe first, and then me.
So I think it is a difficult question, but I think the museum is in a very good hand, so I believe in the new generation. So I hope it will work. All our projects and the museum, so we survive. And
I think that yeah, it's I'm optimistic always, but it's also really hard to not to make your work relevant in today's society, but to keep it always in mind, not to focus only on a scientific or one project, or not to focus only on those aspects of research and exhibition creation and publication which has been already set up. And I think that this small museum and this small staff who work in the museum, we are very much enthusiastic about finding new ways of connecting with our audience, of finding new ways to transmit the knowledge which has been collected in the museum. And we are quite adaptive to new media and new technology, which is also important for a museum to stay relevant. The main problem is always, of course, time and funding, which has to be provided, and also our general feeling towards the whole context, cultural, political, societal context of the museum. But it's always changing, and it's changing very rapidly. So we're just trying to adapt to new situations.
Yeah, that's right. Actually, there were one question in the chat, which were just following the situation of the museum in Hungarian context, I guess, in Hungary as such, as the museum was established in the 70s and runs till 2020s, right? So it's quite, well, yeah, this is quite interesting politically. I mean, quite interesting area, I guess. What I like quite a lot in your work is that you work as a research institute, at least this is my understanding of the situation, but on the other side, you are still the museum, and the openness, the aspect of openness through the new media, through the education, probably also through the archive and digitalization is something I'm interested in as well. So my another question would be, how does this work together? Are you able to connect educational levels with exhibitions and so on? Do you have a good experience with that? Because also maybe one more thing, and this is also something we so much admire in avant-garde as such, right? In 20s and 30s, the connection through whole, not just Europe, but I guess the whole world, the communication, the openness to life as such. This is something we are interested in all in avant-garde, I guess.
We're actually very lucky that we have a team who work with students. Mainly high school students, but also elementary school students. Or Petty and Orsi, they're going to hold a separate presentation about their work, and they are very creative and very innovative in several ways. And they are also coming from a humanities background, and we're always trying to create educational programs together, so not separately, but also involving the new ideas and new perspectives which are risen by the research publications or temporary exhibitions which are created in the museum. And also we have a very close relationship with several universities. So we have already been holding university courses, so lectures in the museum, together with the Museum of Applied Arts, the Mohli Nagy University, and the Eötvös Loránd University's humanities departments. So I think that these all could be viewed together, and I think that these efforts are always very fruitful, and these efforts always create new connections and new opportunities. And actually, some of those students who has been involved with either the educational department or the university lecture series, they came back to the museum as either interns or visitors, or they became more interested not only in Kassak's life or Kassak's works, but also in the critical thinking about the avant-garde.
Yeah, I think this is actually another quite interesting thing. I know you don't like to up-to-date avant-garde or something like this, but to make it more general and to work with specific principles of avant-garde as such, as I understand it. And I like this approach also quite a lot. My another question would be, because I think actually the young generation is really interested in avant-garde, and there are quite a lot of reasons. But do you see the correlation also between historical avant-garde, neo avant-garde, and contemporary art somehow, because you are working with all these elements in your exposition and your projects? I know about the exhibition of Adam Albert, of course, but many others. So do you see some sort of a correlation there?
Yes, we wanted to examine these different phenomena together. So to compare the historical avant-garde with the new avant-garde in the 1960s and 70s, and the current phenomena of the contemporary avant-garde, so I think it is very important to see this thing together and like in a holistic way, actually. So for example, we try to, that's why we try to involve contemporary artists to our program, because their experiences are very important for us, for the also for the historical research, and working with artists, with contemporary artists who reflect to the Kassak's oeuvre and the avant-garde, the historical avant-garde. It could give us a new aspects and a new point of views in our historical research.
Merche, would you like to add anything to this? Would you like to choose one artist you like to work in past and it was fruitful, I guess?
I think it's always very interesting to see these connections. So our most deep connection is with Klári Rudas, who's a painter, and she's creating abstract paintings currently. But she has been the designer of our exhibitions on avant-garde journals since 2015. So we have created already 6 or 7 exhibitions together. And she has been working with us from the beginning. So she's not only a graphic designer for the exhibition, but she also partakes in the creation of the whole concept of the exhibition. And I think it's really important to see not only these formal aspects or topical aspects of relations between historical avant-garde, neo-avant-garde, and contemporary art, but also to see these philosophical or ideological interferences. And we're trying to focus on these aspects. So we're not working with artists because they create abstract works, just as Kassak and other avant-garde artists did in the 1920s. But we work with them, and we try to include them in our program, and we try to create a space for these artists and intellectuals, because we see that those ideas of a socially engaged and technologically and philosophically open art, which was the main idea behind the avant-garde of Kassak in the 1910s and the 20s and the 30s, could also be found in contemporary thinking. But of course, today these borders between art and activism, politics and life, these are much more blurred than they were in the 20s. So everything is much more complex now, and it's really much harder to see these very strict ideas which could be separated from each other, as they were in the 20s when all of these magazines, all of these artists, all of these groups had their own manifestos, and they constantly tried to express what they thought about art and life and politics. Now it's a completely different situation, and we also have to adapt to these new situations.
Okay, thank you very much. This is another quite interesting point, actually. When we are talking about borders, you were also mentioning the project for the future, referring to center and periphery relationships, but also the personalities around the main spectrum, I guess. So what does this mean, actually? And not just in Hungarian context, but also in a context of the, I don't know, broader field, Europe at least. The differences between East and West. What does the Central Europe mean, actually, if there is something like a Central European culture? Can you refer to this at least briefly?
We were talking about that the international character of the avant-garde is very important, and we try to find new ways to contextualize the Hungarian avant-garde, and the new way of this thinking is thinking in a regional context is for us is very important because I think as we in our project in the Double Speak project try to find new ways and new aspects for the research, this Eastern European or regional context was a new way of rethinking this whole story with the avant-garde, and not just the new avant-garde, but also it could be a good starting point also for the historical researching for the historical avant-garde.
Okay.
And it's important, I think, to keep in mind that actually this is a topic that has been floating around for some years now, and many important theoretical and historical writings have already been published about both the topic of the political, the historical, the sociological history or context of Central Europe, and also the differences between what we think about Central Europe or Eastern Europe now and what has been said about Central Europe before the Second World War. And I think that there is actually a shift or a change of the whole concept of Central Europe or East Central Europe or Eastern Europe during the 20th century, which has to be considered. But of course, if we're talking about regions and this regional aspect, I think that this could be used as a general frame for new interpretations or new discussions, but we must not think of Central Europe or Eastern Europe in a relation with Western Europe as the periphery. So we have to reconsider this whole concept, and this has been going on in art history, in literary history, in social history for some years now. And I think that it is a very good starting point to discuss further. And I think that the project Years of Disarray has been a very important new step towards a redefinition of this whole concept of Central European avant-garde, which could be, of course, discussed even further. And it's really important to talk about these issues and to try to redefine this whole region and the story of art in this region in relation with each other and not separately.
Yes, I think this is really a difficult question, because the question has arisen that why is there no regional approach, an appropriate regional approach? Because of the rivalization of the nations. So because nations define themselves relative to each other and confront each other on the pattern of political rivalries. So can we regard Central Eastern Europe as a unitary area, like Western Europe and Russia are? So there are very difficult questions, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I was actually also aiming to Years of Disarray because I find it as quite a nice platform we can all meet and think about the situation as it is through the exact aspects, not just in theory, I guess. So I'm very happy that you were on board on this and we can follow this kind of work to the future, I guess. There were one quite nice and funny question in chat. If you see any relationship between the museum itself and the building you use for yourself, but I think Martial already talked about it a little bit. I like this kind of aspect of Baroque palace and or chateau and the institution, which is absolutely different. And I remember my experience when I visited you a few years ago and went through this historical building to the completely new installation, which were quite beautiful in that time. So my last question would be, and I think it should be also the invitation for another lectures, is focus on a new exposition you are working on. How does it look like?
So currently we're working on an exhibition to be open mid-November. Mm-hmm. It's about two poets, Erzsi Újvári and Sándor Barta. They were a couple, married. Erzsi Újvári was the youngest sister of Kassak, and Barta, her husband, he was involved in the editing of the magazine Ma in the 1910s and the 1920s. So it's a really interesting couple. They created really outstanding Hungarian Dada poems, and they also edited Hungarian language proletkult magazines in the early 20s in Vienna. They then exiled into the Soviet Union, and unfortunately they died there. Barta was executed, and Erzsi Újvári died soon after, before the Second World War. And these are actually these sunken or forgotten authors of the Hungarian avant-garde. We were really happy that the heirs of them approached us last year, actually, before COVID. And they showed us the archives, which is really outstanding, and it has been in the family since the early 40s. And now we have processed these materials, manuscripts, correspondence, photos previously unseen, and also many journals, magazines, publications. So we're working on this exhibition right now, which we really plan to create as a virtual exhibition as well, also supplemented with videos and English translation of some of these materials which we have found. And we're working on another exhibition which is going to be opened for the summer next year, which is about avant-garde music. And it's really a new topic for us. We're working together with musicians and theoretical researchers to create an overview of not only Hungarian but also international aspects of music and the avant-gardes.
Yeah, I think this is something we are looking for all to see and hear, and this is absolutely lovely.
We really hope that you will be able to visit Budapest very soon. We really hope that the pandemic soon will end and we could travel again.
Yeah, that would be absolutely lovely. Maybe this is a good opportunity to mention our small talk about a possible quiz or something like that. And there might be free tickets to visit Kassak Museum in Budapest.
Yes, definitely. There will be.
So,
with no time limit, so you can come anytime.
You're very kind. Thank you very much. Yes, let's all visit Kassak Museum in Budapest. I would like to thank you both because it was a lovely evening. I think we've learned quite a lot, and I look forward to meet you again in online space October 7th, again 7 p.m. in the evening with the presentation and discussion. Actually, I think it's going to be a virtual tour, right?
Yes, in the permanent exhibition.
In a permanent exhibition, so let's enjoy it. Thank you all. I would like to thank you to our public as well. It was lovely to meet you and see you. Have a lovely evening. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Thank you.